Happy New Year, and thank you for being with us. Today, we're going to discuss the film Don't Look Up. This is a film directed by Adam McKay and written by McKay and David Sirota, who is someone who is writing in Jacobin. And I don't want to say that this is setting the scene about what the film is about. So before we start, let me say something. I like hot takes on films. So quite often people hate something and I like it. So when I hear that the film is horrible, I'm extra motivated to try to find something good in it. This is one thing. And I even liked the last episode of How I Met Your Mother. I mean, I'm that controversial when it comes to things that everyone else hates. The second thing is I never dislike a film merely because I don't like its politics. So, for example, I loved the film Goodbye Lenin because it was a good film. And even by Adam McKay, who is the director, he directed some years ago a film about the financial crisis called The Big Short, which is a film that I don't think it gets the crisis right, or it is missing a big part of the crisis, but it's such a good film that I've watched it 2 times, and some particular scenes of this film, I also assign it to my students on the class on the financial crisis. So everything that I'll say about the film has nothing to do with its politics. And with that, I will just say that for a beginning, that it was definitely on the top 3 worst films I ever watched in my life. It was the first time that I had to watch a film in 1.25 speed, not because I was in a hurry, but because I couldn't stand watching it. It was painful to watch. So we're going to go through it with Mark. And Mark actually reached out on Twitter and said we should do something about this film, but we haven't quote rehearsed, so I have no idea what his take will be. Very, very quickly, the plot of the film, without giving spoilers, is that, although there will be spoilers later, is that there's a comet coming to Earth. It's a comet of a size that it will be a life-ending event for Earth. And there's a very tight window of 6 months. So there are 2 scientists who are not famous, but who managed to figure it out. And the film is about their struggle to persuade the media and the political class of the country, of the United States, to do something. And the scientists are Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. So this is the very, very, very quick review, let's say, not the overview of the film. So, Mark, what did you think about the film and why did you want to discuss it?
I had a completely different experience than you did. Probably the polar opposite. And now, of course, as an objectivist, I have to, as you do, accept the mixed premises of films, accept what I consider to be errors and improper evaluations of historical events and people. But I tend to focus on more the technical aspects of films like that and can find quite a bit of enjoyment. I actually found, let me just talk about, something that isn't necessarily related to the plot, but important to it. As an actor, especially watching the film, I thought the characterizations of the main characters, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Cate Blanchett's character, and Mark Rylance, who happens to be, I think, the greatest living and breathing Shakespearean actor. By the way, if you haven't seen any of his Shakespeare work live there in the UK, you should check it out on YouTube. He's pretty brilliant. I thought their characterizations were amazing. I like actors.
Sorry, this is the guy who plays the bad capitalist, right?
He plays he plays the spectrumy. He plays the Asperger's head of technology of a corporation, sort of the Elon Musk, but further down the scale of autism spectrum. I thought that was a flawless characterization. It was rigorous, and there wasn't a crack in it. It was fully concentrated, and from an actor's point of view, it's a study. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio's character was a science teacher every high school kid has probably had in his class, not only from his chosen dialect and way of speaking, but the reclusive, cut off, and antisocial aspects of him that gave him a great character arc in the end when he starts to become enamored of fame, and it intoxicates him and sort of ruins his character. I also thought Cate Blanchett was brilliant. She did a perfect Laura Ingraham. Now, I don't know if that was her character study, but it seemed like it. And I thought it added that flavor of superficiality and condescension that the character really needed to highlight what the writers were saying about media, social media, its preoccupation with superficiality. I don't necessarily think they want everything to be happy. I think they want the other thing, but they're certainly preoccupied with clickbait as opposed to real news. And they're certainly preoccupied with image over substance. And I think that was one of the main messages of the film. Jennifer Lawrence is always amazing, simple, clear. From an acting point of view, that's an amazing thing to watch. So that was something that kept my attention just in and of itself.
Okay, so no disagreement that the acting was great. But by the way, I want to ask you something. So many people claim that when you are within a generation of some particular great performers, you don't realize how great they are. So we always say, for example, the big ones of the last 50 years are Robert De Niro or Jack Nicholson. And there are people who say, no, we are actually seeing the big ones right now. In the same way that in football we have, let's say, Messi and we forgot Pelé, we should see that Leonardo DiCaprio is at that level. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy's won an Academy Award, but so he's been recognized in a way, but there's a part of me that feels like he's not recognized for the talent that he is. He's seen as a movie star, which is different from an actor, which is different from the actor that a Robert De Niro or Pacino level reputation would have. And I think he deserves that for sure. He is extremely talented.
Okay. So here are the things that I didn't like in the film. So to begin with, Netflix, when you go to watch it, describes it as provocative. I didn't find a single provocative thing to it. So it's provocative to whom? In a way, it is as provocative as a Catholic saying that the Pope is good. So in the film sings the tunes of every predictable stereotype that the establishment, or however you want to call it, the regime, the elites, however you want to call it, has for its opponents. So let's start from the beginning. So we see in the beginning the cool, hip girl that discovers the comment, this PhD girl who is Jennifer Lawrence, who is, of course, very nervous, unhappy. She has a boyfriend who is this typical boring beta guy who gets a nervous attack, an anxiety attack when he's told that the world is going to end. And she's swallowing Xanax in the same way as you would swallow marshmallow. So now there's nothing wrong with it, but it is characteristic that this film is very anti-heroic. Everyone is anti-heroic. Even the good guys are portrayed as anti-heroic. So DiCaprio is constantly having a very unstable character. He's cheating on his wife. Then he makes up his mind and he goes back to her. Everyone is weak. It's like nothing can be done. The only character who has some elements of heroism is this guy who, for those of you who haven't watched the film, so what happens is that DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence go to the president, played by Meryl Streep. By the way, the president is Donald Trump, but in a female version, exactly the same as Trump. She has even written a book about how to make money. So they go to the president sends them away, says, well, we have more important things like the midterms and all that stuff. By the way, even as a metaphor of climate change or whatever, this doesn't make sense. Even the most stupid president in the history, when you go and tell, look, the world is going to come to an end, they will jump in the opportunity because they will want to play the hero. So
I think it was more. I think it was more a metaphor for COVID, because I mean that's what justified the president's, lack of vision with respect to what to do about it, not taking it very seriously.
But even then, it fails as a satire because people have short memory. But Trump was more concerned with COVID than the other side in the beginning. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi was encouraging people to go to Chinatown, and Trump, who was imposing the travel bans, was the racist. But anyway, so what happens then is that there is a political scandal, and now President Trump, Meryl Streep as president, because she wants to change the agenda, she invites back the scientists and says, look, we see that there's an issue here, and let's push this agenda that the world is going to come to an end. And they find an old astronaut or something, who is the only funny character for me in the film, who is a veteran of old style redneck conservative, completely politically incorrect, and he's sent on a mission like in Independence Day to plant some nuclear bombs to the planet. And he, who is the hero, he's portrayed as a complete buffoon. He doesn't know how to speak. He makes all the politically incorrect comments. He's someone who he's portrayed a bit like Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight, the iconic conservative, by the way, basketball college coach, completely with methods that today would be completely unacceptable in today's climate. He's even mentioned by the president when she says a quote and says, I don't remember if it was Bobby Knight or Churchill or whatever. So even that person who's going to save the earth is portrayed in a completely unheroic way. And you could say, yes, it's a satire, but in a way, this film says no one can do anything. That was there's a very deep pessimism and a very deep nihilism at the film. So this is another element that made it.
But can I qualify that? No one can do anything in the cultural climate of the time. A cultural climate that is saturated by superficiality, a clickbait mentality, and politicizes everything, puts politics ahead of everything else. Now, that is a truth.
That is a truth, yeah, but if this is what the film does, it's mostly unintentional, because the film wants to tell you that society is divided in two. On the one part, it's the people who are like us, the people who wrote the film, who understand, and on the other part, there are the stupid, unwashed masses who don't understand. So we see time and again making fun of conservatives, making fun of again of this redneck stereotype. But let's qualify. Let me also qualify these things from particular events from the film. So so we have this mission that goes to the comet. It will meet the comet and it will destroy it. Now, literally, when the rockets have been launched, they have to make a U-turn. Why? Because we have mentioned by now the big villains of our culture, which is conservatives and rednecks, but we've missed one big villain, the capitalist. So here we have the capitalist entering the scene. It's the guy played by Mark Rylance, as you mentioned, very well. And he's this kind of half human, half computer, something between Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. And because he thinks there is profit to be made by the comet because of some minerals or something, he's a big donor of the president. The rockets that have been launched literally make a U-turn because, as we know, everyone in this world cares more about profit than about saving life on Earth. And again, this is so cheap. This is at the level of school children or a first-year university student trying to be edgy. So when you make a satire, you need to somehow make it a bit funny or make it a bit controversial. This is the exact opposite, Mark.
Oh, where do I go with that? Yeah, you're right. I think they used all the tropes that the left thinks animate people, and that the left thinks, defines what the errors are in our society, and then they dramatize those things. I mean, we see that in pretty much every film that's come down the pike from the classic film era to today. So, to me, that wasn't so unusual, right? I saw. I mean, for me, the main villain, despite the characterization of the physical bad guys as conservative, the main villain was culture, was not just a culture of conservatism as lampooned by the left, but a culture, a superficial culture, animated by and interested in all of the wrong things. And that was personified by the newscasters and the social media, and then how messages get diluted by and character becomes contaminated by fame, by exposure to fame, in the person of Leonardo DiCaprio, who becomes more enamored of being popular than he does about solving the problem. To me, those are real issues that we see, and I think it's a peculiar type of issue for the current generation, because social media enables anybody to get fame, not just the Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame, but you can literally become stupid famous by doing stupid TikTok videos and acquiring 20 million followers on stupid TikTok videos. And people are more interested in seeing that and cat videos and the Aussie man's, commentary on people crashing than they are in real news, real substantive problems that people are going through and trying to solve those. So I think it was a commentary on society, the right things in society, but perhaps in the wrong way.
Yeah, but even that aspect, there's a better way to make it, to mock it. I don't know if people remember Woody Allen's not Midnight in Paris, the other with Rome, from Rome with Love, I think. Anyway, where Roberto Benigni plays this guy who gets these 15 minutes of fame without knowing why. And this was actually funny. This was actually interesting, but not so much this one. Anyway, what you said made me think something about propaganda and about the criticism, but let's first go to some super chats. Sam is bored again. Thank you. Jonathan, thank you very much. Generous super chat. Alison says, the way the movie was filmed, it's the culture and the way people act in the movie that's supposed to make you mad. It did it well in that aspect. Yeah, I could see what you're saying. And that's relative to what Mark said. So as if it's a criticism of the culture, it's so bad because also the culture that is criticized is so bad. I get that.
Yeah, it breeds inauthenticity. It breeds the search for celebrity's sake. It gets people focused on all of the wrong values.
So Jason says, thank you, Jason, for your contribution. It also says people cannot know a real threat, i.e. a comet, since they're already being bombarded with false claims that the planet is burning up. Yeah, and you see the caricature of Alex Jones, sort of conservative anchorman, saying, well, again, the government is trying to steal our guns. But even at that level, it's not accurate, because what we've seen with COVID, for example, is the opposite. What we see with COVID is the population trying to pressure the government to take stricter and stricter and stricter measures. So this idea that everyone would be nonchalant with a comet coming towards the Earth, I think this missed the point. The other thing that missed the
But then again, it shows the political class not only being out of step with the real interests of the American people, but exclusively trying to preserve its own interests at the expense of the American people. So it's politics before really anything else. They pad it with the thing that I think the culture will accept, which is, love of money or greed or something that's propelling. But really, the political class is never really in touch with defending and protecting us. They're really in touch with expanding their political base and power, and they're concerned with the next poll, and the next election more than they are with right or wrong.
Which is what actually is happening in the film, where the bigger concern is the next the next midterms and the next nomination in the Supreme Court. Now, something else about the film. One of the tropes in the film is that we need to talk more about these existential threats that we're facing, and it's mostly the metaphor is for climate change, I think, more than for COVID. But at the end of the day, that's all that we're doing. That's all that Hollywood is doing. That's all that a big part of the political class is doing. In the UK, the whole of the political class. So again, they're knocking here on an open door. They are criticizing something, and they're trying to point to a problem that is not there. The road is already completely open for them. So this idea that we need to talk more, but there are these gatekeepers like the billionaires or the president that is blocking it, that's not the case.
Needing to talk more is a euphemism for accepting my perspective, because they don't really want to talk more. What they want is for you to adopt their line of thinking. And that's evident in the closed one-way street that is climate change. They crush dissenting voices. They socially shame people who are dissenting voices, and they attempt to ostracize them and politically remove them surgically from our society. They're not even in the argument. So they don't want to have an open discussion. They want you to think the way they do.
And that's the other interesting thing with the film, as someone put it in Substack, I think a guy called Iglesias, but I'm not sure where I read, who says, it's a bit ambivalent. Should we trust the elites in the film? But the elites are a corrupt president, and even the scientist is corrupt. So if we take this as a metaphor for COVID, this would be Fauci. So even on that, trying to make this parallel, even there, the film doesn't succeed. Of course, if you take the approach that Mark is taking, yeah, then it makes sense that it makes fun of them as a class, and not, you shouldn't try to draw particular parallels between the characters in the film and characters in real life. But one last comment is that for me, the film verified how the left has this need to see themselves, the left, like this part of politics, they have this need to see themselves as the underdogs. They are not anymore the underdogs. Someone could say they almost never were, but they need to think of themselves. Even DiCaprio, I think, the billionaire, the celebrity, even these people would want to see themselves still as the underdog. And this film plays with this trope that we are the people, we are with the weak guy because we have to face these powers to be. And it's so obvious that this is not the case. That makes the film almost, in my eyes, a caricature of itself.
Well, yeah, leftism is all about oppression and victimology, right? You gain moral status by being oppressed. And I think Americans in general have a disposition that is geared towards liking the underdog. They like the David versus Goliath scenario because, hey, that's how we were born, for crying out loud. And there is something great and heroic about it. And part of the reason they love that narrative is because it casts them in the part of the hero, irrespective of the situation, if they're the underdog all the time. So yeah, their whole ethics is based on being on the bottom of the totem pole.
A question for you, Mark, by Alison. Thank you, Alison. How butchered is the media training shown in the movie? What is it like for you when going into the interviews you do?
What was the first part?
How butchered is the media training shown in the film?
Butchered?
Yeah. So if you remember, the scientists, they keep listening to, oh, you need more media training, you need more media training. And how is it being in these interview sets of these big?
Well, I mean, definitely going into an interview setting is an acquired taste. It's something you don't necessarily fall into naturally, and oftentimes networks will supply you with, written material to help guide you through an interview so that it has the semblance of coherence, because when you're speaking extemporaneously like we are here, you're thinking through your thoughts. It's going to have a circular kind of quality to it that doesn't necessarily look good on interviews. You want to see perfectly polished interviews. Watch The Talking Dead, and you see how everybody on that show has been media savvied, either by long experience in the convention circuit where they have to answer tons of questions and think about lots of things respecting the show, or because AMC has sat them down with media people and rehearsed some of this stuff beforehand, both of which are possible.
Okay, so I've had some experience with being in a big net in Sky News, doing commentary in the newspapers in the morning, and this atmosphere of fake laugh and everyone is a bit this is accurate indeed. This is that part of the film is accurate. Of course, this has nothing to do with the level that you've been involved, where you were, let's say, the central figure. I was more like someone there that they wanted someone to do the commentary, but that part on the atmosphere of a TV setting, I think that was one of the most accurate things of the film. So my last thoughts here would be, this film showed me that even the people who want to make this criticism of the society, they're in a way exhausted themselves. They have no energy. You can find excellent pieces of political propaganda or political commentary by people who think that their cause has the energy, that the future is with it. There are excellent, artistically and aesthetically, pieces of propaganda by the left, by the right. And this film, it shows me that basically everyone is bored. Even the people who want to make the criticism of this society, they're bored, they're exhausted. They have to play with some tropes, but the whole thing is basically meh. What can we do?
Well, I think it's more like Nero, and that's the metaphor for me, right? They're saying if we fiddle while Rome burns, it's going to burn to the ground, and that's sort of what it was making a commentary on. We focus on the wrong things. We're interested in the wrong things. Our culture is so superficial that we can't even see the threat that is before us. Now, I could put that in tons of contexts. I don't necessarily think it's climate change. I don't think it's COVID. I don't think it's any of the things that the left gets their panties in a wad about. We objectivists can say it's something else. It's the malignant ideas. It's the malignant ideas that are levering the world into all the wrong directions, into focusing on all the wrong things. And that's our comment, and as provided they maintain their attention in those directions, we will be at the dinner table sitting there holding hands with no other recourse but to let the goddamn thing just consume us.
Well, okay. I encourage people to join us on Clubhouse, where we're going to be for the next 20 minutes or so. Tell us whether you agree with me, who I said that I suffered watching it, or with Mark, who found some more value in it. Marilyn with a last-minute super chat, thank you very much and Happy New Year. Stupid unwashed masses who don't know anything. Catchy. It's how most politicians see all of us. I would say it's how most of the quote elites see us. It's how academics see people. It's how the journalists see people. It's how the political class is seeing people. So this is definitely a prevalent view. Thank you, Mark. I didn't know that you liked the film, so this made it more interesting. I thought that when you commented on my tweet, you meant that, yeah, I hate it as well, so let's destroy that film. But that's what you get in the Daily Objective. Always fresh stuff and not what people would expect and the predictable. So, good premiere to the year. We go to Clubhouse. And I don't know what the rest of the day has. I know there's a real life meetup in London. These have resumed. Razi is running them. And we go to, okay, nothing else, says Dylan. So we go to Clubhouse. Thank you very much for joining us and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.